James Thompson woke up that Tuesday morning with a sharp pain in his stomach. He tried to ignore it, just like he had been doing for the past 3 weeks. He was a high school teacher, and his students needed him. There were tests to grade, lessons to plan, and parent meetings to attend. He could not afford to miss work over what he thought was just a stomachache. But this morning was different. The pain was so bad that he could barely stand up straight. His wife, Patricia, found him in the bathroom, sweating and holding his side. She looked worried as she helped him back to bed. "James, this is not normal," she said, her voice shaking a little. "You need to see a doctor. You have been saying it will get better for weeks now, but it is only getting worse." James shook his head. "I will be fine. I just need to rest a bit. Maybe it is something I ate yesterday." Patricia was not convinced. She had watched her husband struggle with this pain for too long. Every night he would wake up groaning. Every morning he would move slowly, trying to hide how much it hurt. She knew him well enough to know that if he was showing this much pain, it must be really bad. James was the type of man who never complained about anything. By noon, the pain had become unbearable. James called Patricia from school, his voice weak. "Can you come get me?" "I do not think I can drive home." Patricia dropped everything and rushed to his school. When she got there, she found him sitting in his classroom, pale and sweating. His students had already been sent to another teacher. The school nurse stood nearby, looking concerned. "He needs to go to the hospital," the nurse told Patricia. "His blood pressure is high and he is clearly in a lot of pain." They drove straight to St. Catherine's Medical Center. It was the biggest hospital in their city, known for having good doctors and modern equipment. James had never been seriously sick before, so he felt nervous as they walked through the emergency room doors. The waiting room was crowded and noisy. Sick people sat in chairs along the walls. A baby cried somewhere in the corner. The smell of cleaning products filled the air. Patricia helped James check in at the front desk, and they were told to wait. They waited for over an hour. James sat doubled over in his chair, trying to breathe through the pain. Patricia kept going to the desk to ask how much longer it would be, but the receptionist just told her they were busy and would call his name soon. Finally, a nurse called for James Thompson. She led them to a small room in the back and took his vital signs. She asked him questions about his pain, where it was, how long he had it, and what it felt like. James answered as best as he could, describing the sharp burning sensation in his lower right abdomen. The nurse wrote everything down but did not seem very concerned. "The doctor will be with you soon," she said before leaving the room. Another hour passed. Patricia paced back and forth in the small room while James lay on the examination table, trying not to move. Every movement made the pain worse. He wondered why it was taking so long. Were they helping other people who were more sick? Did they forget about him? When the emergency room doctor finally came in, he quickly examined James and ordered some blood tests and a CT scan. "We need to see what is going on inside," the doctor explained. "It could be your appendix or it could be something else. We will know more after the tests." The test took another 2 hours. By the time they were done, it was evening. James was exhausted from the pain and the waiting. Patricia had called their 2 children to let them know their father was in the hospital. She tried to sound calm on the phone, but inside she was scared. The emergency room doctor came back with the test results. He looked at the computer screen and frowned. "Your white blood cell count is high, and the scan shows some inflammation. We are going to admit you for observation and more tests. I want a specialist to look at this." James felt his heart sink. He had hoped they would give him some medicine and send him home. Now they were telling him he had to stay in the hospital. "How long will I be here?" he asked. "Probably a few days," the doctor said. "We need to figure out exactly what is causing this and make sure it does not get worse." They moved James to a room on the 4th floor. It was a small private room with a bed, a chair for visitors, and a window that looked out over the parking lot. A nurse came in to get him settled, hooking him up to an IV and giving him some pain medicine. The medicine helped a little, but the pain was still there, throbbing and constant. Patricia stayed with him that first night. She tried to make him comfortable, adjusting his pillows and getting him water when he needed it. But she noticed something that bothered her. When James pressed the call button to ask for more pain medicine, it took a long time for anyone to come. When the nurse finally arrived, she seemed annoyed, as if James was bothering her. "You just had medicine 2 hours ago," the nurse said, checking her watch. You are not due for more yet, but the pain is still really bad, James said quietly. Is there anything else you can give me? The nurse shook her head. You will have to wait. The doctor ordered medicine every 4 hours, not every 2 hours. She left without saying anything else. Patricia and James looked at each other, both feeling confused and a little hurt by her cold attitude. Maybe she was just having a bad day, they thought. Maybe all the nurses were overworked and tired. The next morning, a new doctor came to see James. His name was Dr. Richard Carlson, and he was the specialist who would be in charge of James's care. He was a tall man with gray hair and glasses. He barely looked at James as he flipped through the chart. So, stomach pain, Dr. Carlson said, not really asking, but just stating. We will run some more tests and see what we find. In the meantime, try to rest. Doctor, the pain is really severe, James said. Is there anything stronger you can give me for it? Dr. Carlson looked up from the chart for the first time. His eyes seemed cold. We have you on pain medication already. We do not want to overdo it. Just be patient. Something about the way he said it made James feel small, like he was making a big deal out of nothing. Patricia noticed it too. After the doctor left, she squeezed James's hand. Do not worry. They will figure out what is wrong and fix it. But as the day went on, that uneasy feeling grew stronger. The nurses took a long time to answer the call button. When they did come, they seemed rushed and unfriendly. Dr. Carlson came by again in the evening, but spent less than 2 minutes in the room. He did not really listen when James tried to describe how the pain had changed throughout the day. Patricia went home that night to be with their children, but she could not stop thinking about how James was being treated. Something felt wrong, but she could not quite put her finger on what it was. She told herself she was just worried and tired. Hospitals were busy places. The staff was probably doing their best. But deep down, a small voice in her head whispered that maybe, just maybe, something else was going on. By the third day, James was feeling worse instead of better. The pain in his stomach had not gone away, and now he felt weak and tired all the time. He had barely eaten anything because food made him feel sick. The nurses brought him meals 3 times a day, but most of the food went back to the kitchen untouched. Patricia came to visit every day, staying as long as the hospital would let her. She brought him things from home, his favorite books, his phone charger, and pictures of their children. But nothing seemed to make him feel better. He was frustrated and scared. Why were the tests taking so long? Why would nobody tell him what was wrong? On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Patricia's sister Nicole came to visit. Nicole was a nurse at a different hospital across town. She had 15 years of experience working in patient care, and she knew how hospitals were supposed to work. She had wanted to come sooner, but she had been working double shifts all week. When Nicole walked into James's room, her smile faded quickly. She could see right away that something was not right. James looked terrible. His skin had a grayish color, and he was clearly in pain even though he tried to smile when he saw her. Hey, James, Nicole said, giving him a careful hug. How are you holding up? I have been better, James admitted. But the doctors say they are still running tests. Nicole pulled up a chair next to his bed. She started asking him questions, the kind of questions a nurse would ask. When did the pain start? Where exactly was it? Had it gotten better or worse? What medicines were they giving him? How often did the doctors come to check on him? As James answered, Nicole's face grew more serious. She picked up his medical chart from the end of the bed and started reading through it. Patricia watched her sister's expression change from concern to confusion to something that looked like anger. Patricia, can I talk to you outside for a minute? Nicole said, putting the chart back. The 2 sisters stepped into the hallway, leaving James to rest. Nicole looked up and down the corridor to make sure nobody was listening. Then she spoke in a low voice. Something is wrong here, Nicole said. His chart is incomplete. There are gaps in his care notes. Some of the test results are back, but nobody has talked to him about them, and the pain medication they have him on is way too low for what he is describing. Patricia felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? Are they not taking care of him properly? I do not know what is going on, but this is not normal, Nicole said. In my hospital, if a patient has been here 3 days with severe abdominal pain and we still do not know what is wrong, there would be multiple doctors involved. There would be more aggressive treatment. Someone would be checking on him constantly. But Dr. Carlson barely comes in the room, Patricia said, her voice shaking. And when he does, he acts like James is bothering him. I thought maybe we were just being too sensitive. Nicole shook her head. No, trust your instincts. Something is not right here. They went back into the room and Nicole started asking more questions. She asked James about his interactions with Dr. Carlson. She asked about the nurses and how they treated him. She asked if anyone had explained his condition to him or given him a clear treatment plan. The more James talked, the clearer the pattern became. Dr. Carlson had only spent a few minutes with him each day. The doctor never really listened to his concerns. When James asked questions, the doctor gave vague answers or told him to be patient. The nurses seemed to avoid his room. When he called for help with the pain, they took a long time to respond. Sometimes they acted like he was exaggerating. Nicole felt anger building inside her. She had seen this before, though she hated to admit it. She had worked in healthcare long enough to know that not all patients were treated the same way. She had seen how some doctors and nurses treated patients differently based on how they looked or where they came from. James, Patricia, Nicole said carefully, I need to ask you something. Has anyone made you feel uncomfortable here? Has anyone said anything or acted in a way that seemed wrong? James and Patricia looked at each other. They had both felt something was off, but they had not wanted to say it out loud. They did not want to believe it could be true. The nurses barely look at me when they come in, James said quietly. And Dr. Carlson, he just seems so dismissive, like he does not believe me when I say how much pain I am in. Nicole nodded slowly. She had suspected as much. Listen, I do not want to jump to conclusions, but based on what I am seeing in your chart and what you are telling me, I think you might not be getting the level of care you should be getting. What should we do? Patricia asked. Should we ask for a different doctor? You can try, Nicole said, but that might take time and it might not change anything. What I think we need to do is document everything. Every time a doctor or nurse comes in, write down what time it was, what they said, what they did. Keep track of when you call for help and how long it takes for someone to come. She paused, thinking hard about what she was about to suggest. And there is something else. I know this might sound extreme, but I think you should record what happens in this room. Patricia looked shocked. Record, like with a camera? Is that even legal? In this state, it is legal to record in a hospital room as long as one person knows about it, Nicole explained. You would be that person. Look, I am not saying we will need to use it. But if something wrong is happening here, we need proof. Otherwise, it is just your word against theirs. James felt uncomfortable with the idea. He had never been the type of person to sneak around or secretly record people. It felt wrong, like he was doing something bad. I do not know, he said. What if we get caught? What if it makes things worse? Nicole sat down on the edge of his bed. James, I know this feels wrong, but you are not doing anything bad. You are a patient who deserves proper care. If the doctors and nurses are treating you the way they should, then the recording will show that and we can all relax. But if they are not, if something is happening that should not be happening, then you need evidence. Patricia put her hand on James's arm. She is right. I have had a bad feeling about this place since day one. Maybe we are wrong. Maybe everything is fine. But if we are right and something bad is happening, we need to know. Nicole reached into her purse and pulled out a small device. It looked like a regular phone charger with a USB plug. This is a security camera, she explained. It looks like a normal charger, so nobody will notice it. It has a battery that lasts for days and it records video and audio. I can set it up in the corner over there, plugged into the wall. It will capture everything that happens in this room. James looked at the small device in Nicole's hand. His whole life he had tried to do the right thing. He taught his students about honesty and integrity. He had never broken rules or tried to trick people. But he was also in pain, scared and feeling like nobody was listening to him. Maybe this was the right thing to do. Okay, he said finally. Let us do it. Nicole moved quickly. She found an outlet in the corner of the room, partially hidden behind a small table. She plugged in the camera, adjusting it so it had a clear view of the bed and most of the room. From where James lay, it just looked like a phone charger plugged into the wall. Nobody would look twice at it. It is recording now, Nicole said quietly. The memory card can hold several days of video. I will check it every time I visit and switch out the card if we need to. Before Nicole left that evening, she pulled Patricia aside one more time. I want to be wrong about this, she said. I really do. But if I am right, if they are treating James differently because of the color of his skin, then we need to know. And we need to be ready to do something about it. Patricia hugged her sister tight. Thank you for looking out for us." That night, after Patricia went home, James lay in his hospital bed staring at the small camera in the corner. He felt strange knowing it was there, recording everything. Part of him hoped they would never need to look at the footage. Part of him was afraid of what they might find. The pain in his stomach throbbed, reminding him why he was here. All he wanted was to get better and go home to his family. He did not want drama or problems. He just wanted proper care. But deep down he knew that Nicole was right. Something was wrong, and now they would have proof of whatever was happening in this room. 3 days had passed since Nicole set up the hidden camera. James was still in the hospital, still in pain, and still without any clear answers about what was wrong with him. Each day felt longer than the last. The white walls of his room seemed to close in on him. He missed his home, his children, his normal life. Patricia came to visit him every morning and stayed until evening. She kept a notebook now, writing down everything just like Nicole had told her to. Every time a nurse came in, she wrote the time and what they did. Every time Dr. Carlson visited, she wrote down exactly what he said. The notebook was filling up with notes, and the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. On the 6th day, Patricia arrived at the hospital around 9 in the morning. She brought James fresh clothes from home and his favorite coffee from the shop down the street. But when she walked into his room, she found him looking even worse than the day before. "Did they give you any breakfast?" she asked, noticing the untouched tray on his table. James shook his head weakly. "I pressed the call button over an hour ago to ask for more pain medicine, but nobody came. I finally gave up." Patricia felt anger rising in her chest. She marched out to the nurse's station and asked why nobody had responded to her husband's call. The nurse at the desk barely looked up from her computer. "We have been busy this morning," the nurse said flatly. "Someone will get to him when they can." "My husband is in severe pain," Patricia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He has been waiting for over an hour." The nurse finally looked up, her expression annoyed. "Ma'am, all of our patients are in pain. That is why they are in the hospital. Your husband will have to wait his turn." Patricia wanted to scream, but she took a deep breath and went back to James's room. She held his hand and tried to comfort him, but inside she was boiling with frustration. This was not right. This was not how people should be treated. Around lunchtime, James finally fell asleep from exhaustion. Patricia sat in the chair next to his bed, watching him breathe. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through it, trying to distract herself. Then she remembered the hidden camera. Nicole had shown her how to access the video files. The camera had a wireless connection that sent the recordings to a secure app on Patricia's phone. She had not looked at any of the footage yet. Part of her had been afraid to. But now, sitting in this room, watching her husband suffer, she knew she had to see what was happening when she was not there. She put in her earbuds and opened the app. The screen showed the current view of the room, with James sleeping in his bed. She scrolled back through the recordings, looking for moments when she had not been there. She found several clips from early morning visits and late at night. Patricia started watching a clip from 2 days ago, around 3 in the morning. James was asleep in the video, and then she saw Dr. Carlson enter the room. Her heart started beating faster. She had not known the doctor came to check on patients in the middle of the night, but as she watched, she realized this was not a normal checkup. Dr. Carlson walked over to James's bed, looked down at him with an expression that made Patricia's skin crawl. He reached out and roughly shook James awake. James stirred, confused and groggy. "Doctor?" His voice came through the earbuds. "I need to examine you," Dr. Carlson said, his voice cold. What happened next made Patricia's hands shake. The doctor examined James, but not gently like doctors should. He pressed hard on James's abdomen, making James cry out in pain. When James tried to pull away, Dr. Carlson grabbed his arm. "Stay still," the doctor snapped. "You people always make such a fuss about everything." Patricia's eyes went wide. "You people? What did he mean by that?" The examination was rough and painful. James was clearly suffering, but Dr. Carlson showed no sympathy. When James begged for something for the pain, the doctor shook his head. "You just want drugs," Dr. Carlson muttered, but his voice was picked up clearly by the camera's microphone. "That is all you people ever want. Come to the hospital looking for a fix." Patricia could not believe what she was hearing. She watched as the doctor made notes on James's chart, barely looking at him. "Please, doctor, it really hurts," James said in the video, his voice desperate. Dr. Carlson looked at him with disgust. Pain is subjective. You are probably exaggerating. I have seen it 1,000 times. Your kind always exaggerates everything. Patricia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. Your kind. He had said it. He had actually said it. The doctor was treating her husband badly because he was black. She kept watching even though every second made her feel sick. Dr. Carlson finished his examination and started to leave. At the door, he turned back and said something under his breath. Patricia had to replay it 3 times to make sure she heard it correctly. Waste of a hospital bed, the doctor had said. These people take up resources that could go to patients who actually need them. Patricia pulled out her earbuds and sat in shocked silence. Tears ran down her face. She looked at her husband sleeping in the bed, this good man who had never hurt anyone, who spent his life teaching children, who worked hard and paid his taxes and followed every rule, and this doctor, this person who was supposed to help him, who had taken an oath to care for patients, was treating him like he was nothing because of the color of his skin. She found more clips. In one, a nurse came to give James medicine, but practically threw the cup at him, telling him to stop calling so much because they had real patients to take care of. In another clip from late at night, Dr. Carlson came in again while James was asleep. The doctor stood over him and said terrible things, racist words that Patricia had heard before but never thought she would hear in a hospital. Should have sent him home. Dr. Carlson muttered in one clip, nothing wrong with him anyway. Just another one looking for attention and pain pills. They are all the same. Patricia watched clip after clip and each one broke her heart a little more. The worst part was seeing how James tried so hard to be polite, to be patient, to not complain too much. Even when they treated him badly, he said please and thank you. He never raised his voice or made a scene, and they treated him like garbage anyway. She looked at the notebook where she had been writing everything down, all the long waits, all the dismissive comments, all the times James called for help and nobody came. It was not random. It was not because the hospital was busy. It was because of racism, pure and simple. Patricia's phone buzzed. It was a text from Nicole asking how James was doing. Patricia's hands were shaking so much she could barely type. She wrote back, "Can you come to the hospital right now? I found something on the camera." "It is bad," Nicole texted back immediately. "On my way." While Patricia waited for her sister, she kept watching the recordings. She wanted to be sure. She wanted to have all the evidence before they decided what to do next. Each clip she watched made her more angry and more determined. When Nicole arrived, Patricia took her out into the hallway. They found an empty waiting room and Patricia handed her the phone with the earbuds. Nicole watched the clips without saying a word, but Patricia could see her sister's jaw getting tighter with each passing minute. Finally, Nicole pulled out the earbuds. Her eyes were full of tears and rage. "That man should not be a doctor," she said, her voice shaking. "What he is doing is not just wrong, it is illegal. He is violating every ethical code that exists in medicine. What do we do?" Patricia asked. "Do we confront him? Do we show this to the hospital?" Nicole thought for a moment. "We need to be smart about this. If we just confront him, he will deny it. The hospital might try to cover it up or protect him. We need to make sure this gets seen by the right people." They sat in that empty waiting room for a long time, talking about their options. They could report it to the hospital administration. They could file a complaint with the medical board. They could go to a lawyer. They could go to the media. But first, they needed to tell James. He deserved to know what was happening to him. That evening, after the dinner trays had been collected and the hospital got quieter, Patricia and Nicole sat down with James. He could see from their faces that something was wrong. "What is it?" he asked, worry in his voice. "Is it the kids? Did something happen?" "The kids are fine," Patricia said, taking his hand. "But James, we need to show you something. It is going to be hard to watch." They showed him the videos. They watched his face as he saw and heard what Dr. Carlson had said and done. They saw the moment he understood that all his pain, all his suffering, all the delays in his care were not accidents or bad luck. They were deliberate. When the videos ended, James sat in silence. He looked down at his hands. Patricia had never seen him look so hurt, so defeated. James stared at the blank wall of his hospital room. It had been 2 hours since Patricia and Nicole showed him the videos. 2 hours since his world turned upside down. The pain in his stomach was still there, but now there was a different kind of pain, the kind that came from betrayal and humiliation. He had spent his whole life trying to do everything right. He went to college, became a teacher, married a wonderful woman, raised 2 beautiful children. He paid his bills on time, helped his neighbors, volunteered at his church. He taught his students about dignity and respect. And yet here he was, lying in a hospital bed, being treated like he was less than human by the very person who was supposed to heal him. "I need some air," James said quietly. "I need to think." Patricia wanted to stay with him, but Nicole gently pulled her back. "Let him process this," she whispered. "This is a lot to take in." The 2 women stepped outside, leaving James alone with his thoughts. He reached for the remote and turned off the television that had been playing in the background. The silence felt heavy. James thought about all the times Dr. Carlson had dismissed his pain. Now he understood why. He thought about the nurses who took forever to answer his calls. Now he knew it was not because they were busy. He thought about how small and invisible he had felt in this place. Now he knew that feeling had been real. His phone rang. It was his son David calling to check on him. James almost did not answer. He did not want his children to hear the hurt in his voice, but he picked up anyway. "Hey, Dad," David said cheerfully. "How are you feeling today?" "Mom said they are still running tests." James swallowed hard. "Yeah, still here." "How was school today?" They talked for a few minutes about normal things, homework and basketball practice, and what they were having for dinner. The normal conversation made James feel worse somehow. His son had no idea what was happening. His daughter, who was younger, thought her dad was just sick and would come home soon. After he hung up, James felt tears come to his eyes. He was not a man who cried easily, but he could not hold it back anymore. All the fear, the pain, the anger, the sadness came pouring out. Patricia came back into the room and found him crying. She rushed to his side and held him, crying with him. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other while the world felt like it was falling apart. "What do we do?" James finally asked, his voice hoarse. "Do we just let this go? Do we pretend it never happened?" "No," Patricia said firmly. "We cannot let this go. If we do nothing, he will do this to someone else. Maybe he already has done it to others. We have to say something." Nicole came back into the room carrying coffee for all of them. She sat down and looked at James with serious eyes. "I know this is hard," she said, "but we need to make a decision. We have evidence of serious medical misconduct and discrimination. We can use it to file complaints, maybe even legal action, but you need to be ready for what comes next." "What do you mean?" James asked. Nicole sighed. "If we report this, if we take it public, your life is going to change. This will not be private. People will know your name. Your face might be in the news. There will be interviews, questions, maybe even people who do not believe you or who attack you for speaking out. It will be stressful and exhausting." James felt his stomach turn. He was a private person. He did not like attention or drama. The thought of his story being public, of people talking about him, made him feel sick. "But if we do nothing?" he asked. "If we do nothing, Dr. Carlson keeps his job. He keeps treating patients, and somewhere down the line he does this to someone else." Nicole said, "Maybe next time someone dies because they do not get the care they need." The weight of that possibility sat heavy in the room. James thought about his students, the young black boys and girls he taught every day. He thought about how he always told them to stand up for themselves, to not accept injustice, to speak their truth. How could he tell them that if he did not do it himself? Patricia squeezed his hand. "Whatever you decide, I am with you. If you want to report this, I will stand by your side. If you want to just get out of here and never think about it again, I understand that too. This is your decision." James closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw himself going back to his classroom. His students would ask where he had been. What would he tell them? Would he lie and say he was just sick? Or would he tell them the truth, that he had been mistreated because of his race, but he did nothing about it because it was easier to stay quiet? That thought made his decision clear. "I cannot stay silent," James said, opening his eyes. "If I do, I am telling my kids, my students, everyone that it is okay to let this happen. That it is okay to be treated this way. I cannot do that. I will not do that." Patricia smiled through her tears and hugged him tight. Nicole nodded with respect. "Okay," Nicole said. "Then we need a plan. First thing tomorrow morning, we request to speak with the hospital administration. We show them the videos and file a formal complaint. We also need to contact a lawyer, someone who specializes in civil rights and medical malpractice." "But what about tonight?" Patricia asked. "James is still under Dr. Carlson's care. What if the doctor comes back?" Nicole thought for a moment. We request a different doctor. Right now. We tell the nurses that James wants a second opinion and is requesting to be transferred to another doctor's care. They called for the head nurse. She came to the room looking annoyed at being bothered. Nicole explained that James wanted a different doctor. The nurse frowned. Dr. Carlson is one of our best doctors, the nurse said. Is there a problem? We just want a second opinion, Nicole said carefully, not revealing what they knew yet. It is our right as patients to request different care. The nurse huffed but said she would see what she could do. An hour later, a different doctor came to meet James. His name was Dr. Martinez, and he was younger than Dr. Carlson. He smiled when he entered the room and actually looked James in the eye. I hear you are not happy with your current care, Dr. Martinez said kindly. Tell me what is going on. James explained his symptoms, the pain, how long he had been there without clear answers. Dr. Martinez listened carefully, actually listened, and took notes. He examined James gently, asking permission before touching him and apologizing when something hurt. I'm going to review all your test results tonight, Dr. Martinez said, and I am ordering some new tests. From what you are describing, we should have figured this out already. I am sorry you have been in pain for so long. Those simple words, that basic kindness, made James want to cry again. This was how doctors were supposed to act. This was what care was supposed to look like. After Dr. Martinez left, the three of them felt a small sense of relief. At least now James would get proper care, but they knew the hard part was still coming. That night, Patricia went home to be with their children. James tried to sleep, but his mind would not stop racing. He kept thinking about what would happen tomorrow when they reported Dr. Carlson. Would the hospital believe them? Would they try to protect their doctor? Would anything really change? The next morning, James woke up early. He felt scared but also determined. Patricia arrived at 7 with Nicole right behind her. They had both dressed in their best clothes, wanting to look professional and serious. Nicole carried a folder with printed copies of some of the video files and all the notes Patricia had been keeping. At 8 o'clock, they went to the hospital administration office. They asked to speak with the hospital administrator and the chief of medicine. The receptionist said they would need to make an appointment. This is urgent, Nicole said firmly. We have evidence of serious misconduct. They need to see this today. Something in her voice must have convinced the receptionist. She made a phone call, and 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a conference room. The hospital administrator, a woman named Mrs. Henderson, and the chief of medicine, Dr. Roberts, came in looking confused and slightly annoyed. What is this about? Mrs. Henderson asked, sitting down across from them. Nicole did not waste time. She opened her laptop and turned it toward them. We have video evidence of Dr. Richard Carlson abusing a patient and making racist comments. We recorded it in the patient's hospital room over several days. The two officials looked shocked. Dr. Roberts leaned forward. That is a serious accusation. Are you sure about this? Watch the videos, Patricia said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. They played the clips. The room became very quiet as Mrs. Henderson and Dr. Roberts watched Dr. Carlson's behavior. James watched their faces change from skepticism to shock to horror. When the videos ended, there was a long silence. Mrs. Henderson looked pale. Dr. Roberts looked angry. This is unacceptable, Dr. Roberts said, his voice tight. Completely unacceptable. Dr. Carlson will be suspended immediately while we conduct an investigation, Mrs. Henderson added. I am so sorry this happened to you, Mr. Thompson. This does not represent the values of our hospital. The hospital moved quickly after seeing the videos. Within 2 hours, Dr. Carlson was escorted out of the building. His office was sealed and his patient files were transferred to other doctors. James was officially moved to Dr. Martinez's care, and his treatment changed immediately. Dr. Martinez ran new tests and finally figured out what was wrong. James had a severe infection in his intestines that had been getting worse for days. If it had gone untreated much longer, it could have become life-threatening. Dr. Martinez started strong antibiotics right away, and within 24 hours, James started feeling better. You should have been treated for this days ago, Dr. Martinez told him, anger in his voice. The signs were all there in your test results. I do not understand why Dr. Carlson did not see them. But James and Patricia understood. Dr. Carlson had not looked because he had not cared. He had already decided that James was not worth his time or attention. 2 days later, Mrs. Henderson called James and Patricia back to her office. This time, there was a lawyer with her from the hospital's legal team. The lawyer was a tall man in an expensive suit who smiled too much. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Mrs. Henderson began, "we have completed our preliminary investigation. Dr. Carlson's behavior was completely inappropriate and does not reflect the standards of care we expect at St. Catherine's. We want to make this right." The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "We are prepared to offer you a settlement. $50,000 to cover your medical expenses, pain and suffering, and any other costs you have incurred. All we ask is that you sign this non-disclosure agreement. It means you cannot talk about what happened here with anyone outside this room. No media, no social media posts, nothing." Patricia and James looked at each other. $50,000 was a lot of money. It could pay off their car, help with the kids' college funds, give them some breathing room. But something about it felt wrong. "You want us to stay quiet," James said. "You want us to take the money and pretend this never happened?" "We want to resolve this matter privately," the lawyer said smoothly. "For everyone's benefit. Going public would be stressful for you and your family. It would drag on for months, maybe years. This way you can move on with your lives." James shook his head. "No," the lawyer looked surprised. "No?" "No," James repeated, his voice getting stronger. "You want me to take your money and stay quiet so that nobody knows what happened here. So that nobody knows Dr. Carlson is a racist who put my life in danger. So that other patients do not know to watch out. I will not do it." Mrs. Henderson leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, please understand. This was one doctor, one bad situation. It does not represent our entire hospital. If you go public with this, you will hurt the reputation of all the good doctors and nurses who work here. Then maybe you should have been paying more attention to what was happening in your hospital," Patricia said, her voice sharp. "My husband almost died because nobody cared enough to treat him properly. How many other patients has Dr. Carlson treated this way? How many other people at this hospital are doing the same thing?" The meeting ended badly. James and Patricia walked out without signing anything. The hospital's lawyer looked angry, but there was nothing he could do. They had not broken any laws by recording in the hospital room, and the evidence was clear. That evening, Nicole brought over a friend of hers, a civil rights lawyer named Marcus Williams. He was an older black man who had been fighting discrimination cases for 30 years. He sat at James and Patricia's kitchen table and listened to their story while watching the videos on Nicole's laptop. When the videos ended, Marcus took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This is one of the clearest cases of medical racism I have seen in years," he said. "That doctor should lose his license, and the hospital should be held accountable for employing him and not supervising him properly." "Can we win if we sue?" Patricia asked. "With this evidence?" "Absolutely," Marcus said, "but I need to be honest with you. Lawsuits take time and energy. The hospital has expensive lawyers who will try everything to make this go away. They will dig into your life looking for anything they can use against you. It will not be easy." "What if we do not sue?" James asked. "What if we just report him to the medical board?" "You can do that too," Marcus said. "In fact, I recommend doing both. Report him to the state medical board and they can investigate and possibly revoke his license. But that process is internal and quiet. If you really want to make change, if you want to make sure this never happens to anyone else, you need to make noise. You need to tell people what happened." James thought about his students again. He thought about teaching them history, about all the people who had fought for civil rights, who had spoken up even when it was hard and scary. Could he do any less? "What if we go to the news?" Patricia asked. Marcus smiled. "That is what I was hoping you would say. I have contacts at several news stations. If you are willing to share your story, they will want to cover it. Video evidence like this, it is powerful. It makes people pay attention." Over the next few days, they made their plans. Marcus filed complaints with the state medical board and the hospital licensing board. He prepared a lawsuit against both Dr. Carlson and the hospital. And he reached out to a reporter he trusted at the local news station. The reporter's name was Jennifer Park. She came to their house with a cameraman and spent hours interviewing James and Patricia. She was kind and professional, asking questions but never pushing too hard. When they showed her the videos, she watched in silence, her face getting more serious with each clip. "This is important," Jennifer said when the videos ended. "People need to see this. With your permission, I would like to run this story on our evening news, and I think the national networks will pick it up too." James felt his stomach flip. National news. That meant everyone would see it. His children, his coworkers, his students, everyone in his community. There would be no going back from this. Patricia took his hand. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. James looked at the reporter, then at Marcus, then at his wife. He thought about Dr. Carlson walking free, maybe getting another job at another hospital, treating other patients the same way he had treated James. He thought about how scared he had been, lying in that hospital bed, feeling invisible and unimportant. "Yes," he said, "I am sure. People need to know." The story ran 3 days later on the 6 o'clock news. Jennifer Park reported it carefully and fairly. She showed excerpts from the videos, though they blurred some parts and beeped out the worst language. She interviewed James and Patricia. She got a statement from the hospital, which said they were investigating the matter and that Dr. Carlson was no longer employed there. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, the story was trending on social media. People shared it, commented on it, expressed their outrage and support. James's phone started ringing and did not stop. Friends, family, people from church, former students all calling to check on him and to say they were proud of him for speaking out. But there were other calls too. Angry calls from people who said he was lying, that he was trying to get money, that he was playing the race card. Someone left a voicemail calling him horrible names. Patricia cried when she heard it. By the next morning, the story had been picked up by national news networks. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They all wanted to interview James. His face was on television screens across the country. The videos went viral with millions of people watching them online. The hospital was flooded with calls. Protesters showed up outside with signs demanding justice and systemic change. Former patients started calling reporters, sharing their own stories of poor treatment at St. Catherine's. Some of them said they had been treated by Dr. Carlson and had similar experiences. The state medical board announced they were fast-tracking their investigation. Civil rights organizations reached out to offer support. Other lawyers called offering to help with the case. James had to take more time off from work because of all the attention. His principal was supportive, telling him to take all the time he needed. But James missed his classroom. He missed the simple routine of teaching, the normalcy of it. One afternoon, about a week after the story broke, James's daughter came home from school crying. She was 12 years old and had just started middle school that year. Patricia found her in her room, face buried in her pillow. "What happened, baby?" Patricia asked, sitting on the bed and rubbing her daughter's back. "Kids at school are talking about Dad." She sobbed. "They saw him on TV. Some kids were being mean, saying he is just trying to get attention. They said he is lying." Patricia felt her heart break. This was what she had been afraid of, that their children would suffer because of this. She went downstairs and found James in the kitchen, staring at his phone, reading comments on news articles. James sat down with his daughter that evening. Her eyes were red from crying, and she would not look at him. He felt guilty seeing her pain, knowing it was because of his decision to go public with his story. "I am sorry," James said softly. "I am sorry that kids at school are being mean to you because of what I did." His daughter looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Why did you have to tell everyone, Dad? Why could we not just keep it private?" James thought carefully about how to answer. She was 12, old enough to understand but still young enough to want life to be simple and safe. "Come here," he said, and she climbed into his lap like she used to do when she was little. "Do you remember when we talked about Rosa Parks in your history class?" She nodded. "Do you think it was easy for her to refuse to give up her seat on that bus? Do you think she wanted all that attention and trouble?" "No," his daughter said quietly. "But she did it anyway, because if she stayed quiet, nothing would change. Other people would keep being treated unfairly. I know this is hard right now. I know kids at school are saying mean things. But if I stayed quiet, that doctor might hurt someone else. Another father, another mother, maybe even a kid. Could I live with myself if I knew that and did nothing?" His daughter was quiet for a long time, thinking. "I guess not," she finally said. "But I still do not like it." "I know, baby. I do not like it either. But sometimes doing the right thing is not easy." The next few weeks were difficult for the whole family. The media attention continued. James did several more interviews, always telling the same story, always showing the same videos. Patricia stood by his side at every interview, her hand in his. The hospital tried to rebuild its reputation. Mrs. Henderson appeared on television saying they were implementing new policies, new training for staff, new ways to monitor patient care. But protesters kept showing up and former patients kept coming forward with their own stories of discrimination and poor treatment. 6 weeks after the story first broke, the state medical board made their decision. They held a hearing where they reviewed all the evidence. Dr. Carlson was there with his lawyers, denying everything, claiming the videos were taken out of context, that James had been a difficult patient, but the board members watched the full videos. They heard testimony from other patients who had been treated by Dr. Carlson. They reviewed his patient records and saw patterns of giving less care to certain patients. The decision was unanimous. Dr. Richard Carlson's medical license was permanently revoked. He could never practice medicine again. He also faced criminal charges for medical negligence and civil rights violations. When James heard the news, he cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. It was really over. The doctor who had hurt him would never hurt anyone else, but the story did not end there. The lawsuit against the hospital went to trial 8 months later. Marcus Williams was a brilliant lawyer, presenting the case clearly and powerfully. The jury saw the videos. They heard James testify about his pain and fear. They heard medical experts explain how close James had come to dying because of inadequate care. The hospital's lawyers tried to argue that Dr. Carlson was one bad employee, that they could not be held responsible for his personal views. But Marcus showed evidence that other staff members had reported concerns about Dr. Carlson before, and nothing had been done. He showed that the hospital had ignored warning signs for years. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, they found in favor of James. They awarded him $3 million in damages. But more importantly, they sent a message that hospitals would be held accountable for discrimination in patient care. The money changed their lives, but not in the way people might think. James and Patricia did not buy a big house or fancy cars. They put money away for their children's education. They donated a large amount to organizations fighting for healthcare equality, and they set up a scholarship fund for Black students who wanted to become doctors and nurses. James went back to teaching 6 months after the trial ended. His students welcomed him back with a banner that said, "Welcome home, Mr. Thompson." On his first day back, he talked to his classes about what had happened. Not all the details, but enough for them to understand. "I want you to learn from my experience," he told them. "When something wrong happens to you, you have 2 choices. You can stay quiet and hope it goes away, or you can speak up, even when it is scary, even when it is hard. Change does not happen when we stay silent. It happens when we find the courage to tell the truth." One of his students raised her hand. "But Mr. Thompson, what if people do not believe you? What if they say mean things about you?" James smiled. "Some people will not believe you. Some people will say mean things. That is going to happen. But there will also be people who support you, who stand with you, who believe in you. And if you know you are telling the truth, that has to be enough." The hospital made real changes after the lawsuit. They created a patient advocacy office where people could report concerns about their care. They implemented mandatory training on implicit bias and cultural competence for all staff. They hired a more diverse staff and leadership team. They posted signs in every room telling patients they had the right to request different care providers if they felt uncomfortable. Were all the problems fixed? No, change takes time, and hospitals are big institutions with deep-rooted issues. But it was a start. A year after the trial, Nicole called James with news. One of the hospital's former patients, an elderly Black woman who had seen James's story on TV, had come forward with her own case against a different doctor at St. Catherine's. She had video evidence too, inspired by James's example. The hospital settled quickly and fired that doctor as well. "You started something," Nicole told James. "Patients are not staying quiet anymore. They are documenting their care. They are speaking up. You gave people courage." James thought about that conversation often. He had never wanted to be famous or to start a movement. He had just wanted to get better and go home to his family. But life had given him a different path, and he had chosen to walk it. Sometimes, late at night, he would think about those days in the hospital. The pain, the fear, the feeling of being invisible. He could still hear Dr. Carlson's voice in his head, those hateful words. The memory would never completely go away. But he also thought about the good that had come from it. The people who had reached out to share their own stories. The medical students who told him his case had inspired them to go into medicine to make things better. The hospitals across the country that had changed their policies after hearing about his case. 2 years after everything happened, James was invited to speak at a national conference on healthcare equity. He stood in front of hundreds of doctors, nurses, and hospital administrators and told his story again. He showed the videos again, though by now they had been seen millions of times online. After his speech, a young black doctor came up to him. She was crying. "Thank you," she said. "My father died 5 years ago in a hospital." They did not take his chest pain seriously. By the time they finally did tests, it was too late. He had a heart attack. I always wondered if they would have treated him faster if he had been white. Your story, it made me realize we were not alone. It made me realize his death was not our fault. James hugged her while she cried. This was why he had spoken up. For people like her, for families like hers, for all the people who had been hurt by a broken system and blamed themselves. Patricia often asked James if he regretted his decision to go public. He always said no. Yes, it had been hard. Yes, their lives had been turned upside down. Yes, there had been pain and stress and difficult moments, but he had done the right thing. His children were older now and understood better why their father had made the choice he did. His daughter, who had cried about kids being mean at school, was now in high school. She had started a student organization focused on social justice and healthcare access. She told people her dad was her hero. James still taught at the same high school. He was still the same dedicated teacher who cared about his students and worked hard to help them learn. But now, when he taught lessons about civil rights and social justice, he could speak from personal experience. He could tell his students that change was possible, that one person speaking up could make a difference. The hidden camera that Nicole had brought to the hospital room sat in a drawer in their home. They kept it as a reminder that sometimes the truth needs to be captured and shown to the world, a reminder that evidence matters, a reminder that speaking up, no matter how scary, can change things. Dr. Carlson never apologized. After losing his license and facing criminal charges, he disappeared from public life. Some people felt he should have gone to prison. Others thought losing his career was punishment enough. James tried not to think about him too much. What mattered was not revenge, but prevention, making sure it did not happen again. 3 years after the trial, St. Catherine's Medical Center unveiled a new patient bill of rights. It was displayed in every room in multiple languages. One of the rights stated clearly that patients would receive equal care regardless of race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. They named it the Thompson Patient Protection Policy. When James saw the plaque with the policy named after him, he felt a mix of emotions. Pride, yes, but also sadness that such a policy had been necessary at all. Still, it was progress. Real, measurable progress. He thought about all the patients who would be treated in that hospital in the years to come. Some of them would see that plaque and never know the story behind it, but others would know, and they would feel a little bit safer, a little bit more protected because one man had refused to stay silent about injustice. James's story was told in medical schools as a case study. It was discussed in ethics classes. It appeared in textbooks and research papers. His name became associated with patient advocacy and healthcare reform. But at home, he was just dad. He helped with homework, attended school plays, coached his son's basketball team, and had dinner with his family every night. The extraordinary thing he had done became part of his ordinary life. On the 5th anniversary of the day he went public with his story, James received a letter. It was from a young man named Isaiah, who had been admitted to St. Catherine's the year before. He wrote about how he had been afraid when he got sick, afraid that he would not be treated fairly because he was black. But he saw the Thompson Patient Protection Policy on the wall. He read about James's story, and he felt brave enough to speak up when he had concerns about his care. Because of you, Isaiah wrote, I knew I had rights. I knew I could question things. I knew I could ask for better. And I got the care I needed. You saved my life without even knowing it. James read that letter over and over. He showed it to Patricia, to Nicole, to his children. This was why it had all been worth it. Not for the money or the attention or the satisfaction of winning in court, but for people like Isaiah who were treated better because James had spoken up. The pain in James's stomach was long gone, healed by proper treatment once he finally got it. But the experience had left a different kind of mark, one that would never fully fade. It had changed him, changed how he saw the world, changed what he knew was possible. He had learned that injustice thrives in silence, that speaking up is not easy, but it is necessary, that one hidden camera, one brave decision, one person refusing to accept mistreatment could start a wave of change that touched thousands of lives. And on days when he felt tired, when the memories were hard, when he wondered if it had all been worth it, he would think about Isaiah and all the others like him. He would remember why he had made the choice to share his truth with the world, because in the end it was simple. The right thing is not always the easy thing, but it is always worth doing.